Hi, everybody. So I'm going to try and not talk that much because, as Nikki knows, I tend to overtalk. And my goal is just to offer value today. And I really can't do that until I get to know you guys just a little bit more. And so I'm excited because everything that Nikki touches turns to gold. But also, he knows the value of human connection and community. So I feel like this is kind of a cool way for me to meet everybody and hopefully stay connected and maybe work together one day, work on something or be inspired by you guys. Everything you'll see that I took a lot of notes. I'm just going to continue to do that throughout the session because you guys are working on really cool things. And I wanted to kind of remember that. So I'll just tell you quick little bit about me. And I made a quick list so that I would be brief. Nikki, you can stop me if I'm going in the wrong direction, but just, hi, I'm Amanda. Nikki and I have known each other for a long time. And some of you might have known me when I worked as head of community at TED for the wonderful TEDx community, which has done so many wonderful things and has helped me kind of, in a lot of ways, kind of step into myself and kind of figure out that my evolution is this kind of lifelong journey. I'm a very type A person. I like to kind of like open and shut projects and be done with it. And that's not how life is and how you evolve and learn and grow. So I co-founded a company about 5 years ago, and it was just a side hustle. It was a passion project. That's how lots of these things start, don't they? And it was with the idea, or with the knowledge, I guess you'd say, that there is a Gallup poll that says 85% of people hate their jobs. And I thought that's a lot of people. And it must be true. I read it on the internet. No, I did some research. I made sure that it was true. And then I thought, okay, this really sucks because it's actually true. And I did some research, and there's lots of different reasons why people don't like their jobs, right? If you think about it, you either have had a job before that you didn't really like, or you know somebody. Yes, same results every year, exactly. And you know what it feels like to either have a job that you didn't love, right? Or you know somebody who you're kind of just like, oh, they're always complaining about their job. They don't feel very fulfilled. So I am lucky enough to be married to my co-founder. That's interesting. And my husband and I decided to work on this from one place, and we thought to ourselves, um, anytime we've done any kind of work individually as professionals and really gained traction, it was because we specialized. We found a niche, and we tried to be really good at something and see if we could help people. And because of my background in community engagement, I I really wanted to create some kind of community component to what we were doing. So we decided to start with professional services firms as our first niche. So we started off as a company called Big Four Career Lab, and we only helped people who wanted to get into one of the big four or get a better job because they had an idea of what they wanted their life to look like, and they wanted to use their job as a launching pad. So they wanted to work and then have their life. And that's always been important to me. And I thought there's lots of people probably like that. But what we ended up finding out was that we were helping people, and they were referring their cousin and their brother, um, and their colleague, and saying, we don't want to work necessarily in a big four uh, company, but what we want to do is figure out what we would be passionate about, and can I actually find a job that matches my skills and experiences. So that was really how Dream Career Lab got launched. So it was really organic, and it felt very much like my journey through TED, where TED has always kind of created things because the people kind of call for it, right? The masses kind of say, we want a platform, we want exposure to more ideas, we want a place for discourse and to share lots of kind of cutting edge ideas, and be able to really talk about it in all different languages, etc.
Amanda,
So sorry, go ahead.
what are the big four?
What are the big four? They are the four um, professional services companies that are kind of the biggest ones in the world, and they exist in nearly or most countries. A couple of examples are Ernst and Young and Deloitte and KPMG. So those are the types of companies that we really worked with.
So I was
And
Ernst Young.
oh, okay. Oh, I don't know if that's like it. You remember it fondly, or you learned a lot from it, or it was great. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I very fondly. I was head of recruitment for UK, North America, and Asia Pacific, while still being a director in corporate finance. So
Oh,
I remember it fondly.
wow. And then you moved into okay. We're gonna talk. we're going to talk. But so there was so much there, right? Because in the past 5 years, lots of companies, especially Deloitte, have created lots of cool initiatives, green initiatives. So there was a lot there for a while for us, but we felt called to transition into Dream Career Lab because we realized that we were not helping lots of people who couldn't find us because we were helping with the sort of Big Four moniker and all the branding and things like that. So we transitioned into to Dream Career Lab, and then the pandemic happened. And what we've realized is that while there is a slightly higher volume of people who come to us and say something happened, COVID related, and I'm either not working or I'm really unfulfilled, it's actually kind of pretty much exactly the same issues that people are coming to us from before with. So I've been working at least 5 to 10 years in my career, and things are okay, but they're not great. And I can see examples from other people that I know who feel really fulfilled in their work and they feel mission aligned and there's purpose there and they're driven. And I want that. And I don't know what's the process to do that. And I also don't know in my wildest dreams, when I think about something I'd like to do, I don't see it listed anywhere online. How could I go about finding that? So I think the thing that we do best at DCL is really to help people understand that their skills and experiences are so transferable, right? And while we do say our biggest thing is big but achievable goals, right? You can think up a big dream, you can think up a big goal, but you have to be able to get it, right? If I'm a recent graduate and I want to be the president of Disney, that's probably not attainable in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, right? But if I think of something that aligns with my values, that aligns with the skills that I possess, and I talk to the right people, I can probably penetrate the hidden job market, and I'm going to find a lot of opportunity that's not listed online. So that's kind of our specialty, is to kind of talk to really smart people who haven't quite figured out how to unlock the opportunity that's not listed online. And right now, it's really popular to apply online for jobs, to go on LinkedIn and set up little notifications, to go on Indeed.com and Monster.com, et cetera. But just like dating websites, those companies make money off of you not finding what you're looking for because you'll continue to pay the monthly fee or whatever it is to submit your application. And you might never find the thing that you're looking for. So instead of looking online and thinking I could probably do that, we value people a lot more than that. And we say, why don't you think about what you'd like to do? And then kind of form that into a job. And why don't you start talking to people, and we'll help you figure out who are the right people to talk to actually figure out, is there a job somewhere, whether it's in industry or outside of industry, that could really fulfill you, where you can transfer your skills and experiences, but you can feel that you have purpose, right? And you could feel like you can make your mark. You'll get excited about the work that you're doing, and you step out of that 85% of people who are not happy with what they're doing. So that's kind of in a nutshell the things that we kind of work on every day. I've probably never been more fulfilled, but also stressed in the work that I do. Anybody who runs their own company knows that, right? It's your baby. So this is my third kid. I don't even want a dog at this point. But I get to talk to people every day where I see so acutely that when you don't feel fulfilled in your work, it affects every single area of your life. You can't keep it in a box, right? It's really hard. It always kind of tends to spill over. So when we help people sort of take a step back and kind of start with, well, let's do something about it, right? Let's surround you with a community of people who are also trying to find their dream job, find their dream role, find their dream career, right? So you're not alone. This isn't the first time this has happened to somebody, but also let's kind of take a look at what's going on. So how are you trying to find jobs, and why do you think that that's a good job for you? Why do you feel called to do that? And we ask why maybe about 7 times, and then you get to the real reason why somebody has the job that they have right now and why it's not the job that they want. And that's a really interesting conversation. It can become emotional, right? But usually it leads to something deeper, which is, let's make a plan so that all the collective negative experiences you've had with work don't happen again, because you can kind of future proof against that, right? Think about the boxes that need to be ticked and maybe some things that you think you care about and you don't. And obviously I'm speaking really widely about this because we help people in all industries. I can't really think of an industry that we haven't worked with somebody. There's definitely lots of trends right now in terms of recruitment, but I think that as a company, our mission is really just to take a small bite out of this right now and then scale and we've been working at it for 5 years. We've really scaled in the past 3 years. And yeah, I don't want to, again, I don't want to do too much talking. I want to make sure that I'm adding value. So kind of want to pause and see if anybody has anything to add.
Love what you do. I'm actually would be enjoying to just go back into people's stories and then watch you having that conversation with them. I don't know if Johan can still be active with us. He turned to profile picture and muted. It might mean that he can only listen. Oh, he's there. Would you like to take the chance, Johan?
Yes, I was listening and I stopped the camera because of some of the things froze on my computer. I don't know why, but I could listen and I completely relate to this approach. And I find amazing actually this strategy that you can draft your dream job and not apply to something which is predefined and maybe partially matches your profile. Because in a way, that's it, where am I right now? I'm really trying to define my next step. And I completely relate to the fact that it's not easy. It's a process. And, you know, I'm taking the time because I have a job. So it's allows me to take the time. But yeah, I completely relate to this process. It's a bit top down, no, bottom up, compared to this top down when you apply to something predefined. So yeah.
What are questions you would ask, Amanda?
How do
What
you
are the
start?
types of questions that I would ask a client?
Or Johan?
Or I would ask, okay, so I mean, it's very interesting that you just said I'm lucky because I have a job, right? So that obviously implies security. But what if you didn't have a job? What would you think about the job search and what might come next? And also, how would that change maybe the rapidness with which you might act? I guess would be my first place to start.
Well, I would put all my effort because also, yeah, we have COVID. It's a bit more difficult, at least here in the Netherlands. Many companies are shutting down or stopping recruitment. So it is a difficult environment, and probably also in the US and in that part of the world, it might be, you need to really be creative. So I would somehow try to stand out and to define what makes me, stand out. Maybe new types of job applications, doing a video about yourself instead of just a CV and link it somehow in the CV. These are the things I'm thinking about, like how to really stand out from the crowd, right? At least this is for me now the major challenge, to really define why am I different and why should you work with me, essentially. And I know you need to be creative, like some material which goes beyond this standard application process of a motivation letter, CV. You really need to, how to say, penetrate people's heart and connect with them in a way. So these are the things. I don't know if you do this kind of services to help people define in this creative way of applying to a job, but that's what I'm now a bit working on, and yeah, it's not really easy actually, but it's a process.
You're right that it's not easy. I love your idea about a video. So where you're at right now, where you're thinking, how do I make myself stand out? That's a really good place to start. So when you're thinking video, that's a great idea. Actually, one of our clients, maybe 4 months ago, so kind of like in the heart of COVID, when everybody was like, there's no jobs, there's no opportunity, I also cannot piss my boss off because I'll be royally screwed, got a job because she sent a video. And she sent a really creative video, and it was her pretending that she had the role already. And she was just talking about how 3 months into her role, these were all the things that she had changed or were starting to change. And she talked about, you know, like a 9-month plan and things like, and it was just, she's also kind of sassy. And so it just came off really well, where they were just so impressed and they thought, okay, do you have spreadsheets and sort of like even maybe just SOPs around the things that you're creating? And she was like, I have some, but I can get it done in a week and hand it over to you. And so I love this idea of the video. We have something that we teach our clients that nobody else has, because we created it, and it's called the value letter. So when you have a resume, that's obviously like everything that you've done collectively. A cover letter kind of just explains why, you know, it's kind of the short version of your resume, right? Why should it matter? We have something called a value letter, and that is your future value that you will provide to a company. And so that kind of is just, why am I relevant to this role? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that you need to prove to somebody who's on the other end of that conversation is that you can add value. And if you can't, they don't want to spend any of their time, right? And there's lots of crafty ways, depending on your industry and your personality. A lot of people who are kind of sassy or have a little bit of humor that they can bring to it, right, end up having more exposure, just because that's a little bit more catchy. That's kind of the way that our brains work. So I love that idea of a video. But really, anything that you create, any assets, should really be focused around your value, but really focused on the value that you can provide to that company. So not necessarily this is why you should hire me, because at the end of the day, the feeling should be that I am confident and certain in my ability to do this job for you and do it really well and do it better than anybody else that could possibly work with you. But here's the value that I can provide that nobody else can provide. So not necessarily like, please give me the job because I deserve it. It's flipping it a little bit. And I think that confidence, when you have sort of the right tonality, doesn't come off as cocky or anything like that. It's more of just, this person is very certain that they're the right person for the role. They're confident in themselves. They know themselves. And I think when you create assets like a video, I think that's a great idea that exactly shows that you know yourself.
Nice, thank you.
The question there is whether the right people will see the video. The people who you
That is a great point. So something that we actually work a lot with our clients on, and this is, we have kind of like the 5 myths. And one of them is that, you know, you obviously have to apply online and you need to jump through all these hoops, right? So think about just going into a doctor's office pre-COVID, right? You go in, usually sign your name, you check in, the woman's always too busy, she's on the phone, you go and you sit down. These are all things that people do to sort of delay your progress, to show you who's in control, right? That's kind of like framing the situation. The same thing happens when you apply online, but you're going through an applicant tracking system. It's, you know, they're looking for keywords in your application and your resume, et cetera. Then you go through the hiring team. So what we actually advocate for when we're working personally with a client is really to say, let's talk about what it is that you'd like to do. Let's identify some people who could be your super advocates and really show you those opportunities that aren't listed online, that are in their company or a company adjacent to them. Let's just go right to the key decision maker. Every single time that you do that, you just go straight past the people who are meant to sort of put you in your place. But you do it in a respectful way. You're just there to prove your value. You're not there to jump through hoops just for the sake of jumping through hoops. It's because you earnestly believe that you're the best person to work with them, right? And that's why you went to them. That's always successful, at least to get somebody's ear, and have them say, let's have, right now it's a virtual coffee, but usually it's, let me get my secretary to book us some time. And so we don't advocate that people go through recruiters. We don't advocate that you go apply online or go through a hiring team, because they're not the people who will manage you or work with you or hand you clients or projects, right? They are just given a laundry list of things to look for, and then a shorter list of what to go, nope.
I totally agree, Amanda. That's really great. One of the things, when I accidentally got asked to look after recruitment in the UK, the first thing which I did was to remove everybody from the recruitment department, because they were just engaged to effectively fulfill their job, not to actually get the right people in the right places. And that's why I ultimately took over a bit of recruitment for the US and, well, in fact, the North America, and then Asia Pacific, because it's too easy to fall into the trap. It's basically outsourcing your role as a manager, as a partner, as a director. You're outsourcing all the scrutiny to people who don't know what you're about, don't know what the job's about, never done it, would never be able to do it. So what the hell is the point?
Mm-hmm.
But the question here for you is to see, how can you help the group? And the group here are seriously smart people, and some of them are caught in that they've got jobs. So I haven't worked for anybody for 30 years. But you know, if you have a job, then all of a sudden your time is owned by somebody else. And if you're not careful, you can betray your own values because of the values of the organization. All the people in there are probably all betraying their own values for this mythical value of the organization, which probably doesn't exist actually, except in 3 or 4 key people. So how do you help people break free from the chains of, oh, I need to earn money, so I need a job, so I need to find somebody who can see value in me and can see a way of paying me less than my value to them, so therefore it's a cost positive equation? And how can you help this group work out, how do I actually see and identify the value I might have, and get someone else, whether it's one organization or a grouping or being on my own, to be able to access that value? How do you help people go through that, as opposed to just help them get a job?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
great question.
I'm afraid.
It's a good one, and you're probably gonna have to remind me of some of the side questions within it, but I'll get started and then we'll do that. So there's the echo went away. In terms of what we do, we don't consider what we do to be helping somebody get a job. That is sometimes the end result. More often than not, it's the end result. But what we try to do is help someone think of what it is that they'd like to do realistically, right? And think about what decisions they've made in their life before that, where they arrived at this moment in their career where they're not fulfilled, and think about how they can have a mental shift that will help them to transition into becoming and evolving into the kind of person who gets the job that they want because they know themselves and they know what they want. So a lot of what we do, a lot of the exercises that we do with clients is kind of holistic in that way, because we really do think a lot about mindset, and we think about behaviors, we think about beliefs, and we think about take a hard look at what those things collectively have been up until this point, because something sparked in you and you said, I want to do something, but I need help and I can't quite put my finger on it. So if you're putting your hand up and saying, I need help with this thing, you're taking a big step forward, actually, if you've had no momentum in this area before that. A lot of people, when they talk about how they don't know how to quantify their value, or they don't know exactly what the value is that they're going to bring to somebody else, a lot of that is mindset, because when they show us what their LinkedIn profile looks like or their resume, they're incredibly intelligent. And actually, a lot of people that we end up working with have done the same thing for 30 years, sometimes longer, and they just have been so heads down in it that they don't think about what the macro view looks like of that, and then think of all of their accomplishments, all of their skills and experiences. And it actually does take a third party to say, can we just appreciate the work that you've done so far? So you'd like to shift and you'd like something different and something better, and you'd like to transfer that work someplace else. But can we just sit and look at what you've done and what you've created and what you've built? Maybe it wasn't all under ideal circumstances, but let's just appreciate that. Because a lot of people don't do that. They just think, I'll just do the same thing for forever because it works, right? You get to a certain point, and if, a lot of people think if I'm lucky, my job helps me meet my financial goals, covers all the bases with some perks. But if you're thinking to yourself, I'd like to do something else, but I don't know what my value is and I don't know what that thing might be, those are mindset issues. So they're not technical skill issues, right? So that's usually the thing that we identify first. And then the next step is usually you've never had to market yourself. So if you've worked for the same company for 20 to 30 years, you've just been promoted by word of mouth, or people just know you, or maybe you've stayed within the same industry and you've never actually had to put down on paper, this is what I think I bring to the table. So actually going through that exercise of writing down what you've done, what you're proud of, what are some highlights from your career? And we usually do actually start from the very first job that you had right out of college, or maybe right before. What did you like about it? What were some highlights? What were some pain points? Let's move on to the next one. It actually just helps you to remember, I've done a lot. I've added a lot of value to companies, and maybe my salary or the perks that I received didn't reflect that. And maybe I need to think about myself and detach myself a little bit from the value that a company has placed on me. And once you make that disconnect, you can connect a little bit back to yourself and think about, how do I feel about myself now? What might I like to do? And how would I do better in representing myself moving forward? And I think that that's probably where we sit for a long time, is how to do that, because that moment has to happen. And that's not something that a coach can help you with. A coach can't tell you this is your value. They help you discover it. But me telling you what your value is, how do I know that you believe it? How do I know that you carry that forward and externalize that and show that to other people so that they believe it and they buy into it? It's a journey. It's a journey.
And what happens in your experience as you go through that? What changes do you see in the way in which people approach you or deal with you? Does a relationship change?
Relationship with themselves?
With you? So at one stage they're sort of coming.
Oh, sure. So,
Go on.
So I think that something that we always like to keep in mind, and a good thing to keep in mind as well, is that I don't coach in my own company. I have coached. I've been a coach. I don't act as a coach. I mentor people within my company, and I'm head of a team that's called Career Advisory, right? And that's a team that's been trained to help people recognize what might be the next best step for them. So we actually are qualifying people from the first moment we talk to them, because if somebody wants a change and we push them and challenge them a little bit from the very first conversation and they're resistant to it, we won't go any further. Because if somebody cannot be open and receptive to making changes internally, maybe a reboot of the mindset, and then externalizing those things, it's we can't force that. And I think that that's what makes us, I think, a little bit different sometimes from coaches that I've had or mentors that I've had, where they just want you so badly to be able to take the next step, and they try to force it a little bit, and it just ends in disaster. Because if you're not ready to step over that threshold, somebody can't drag you across it, right? You have to recognize this for yourself and want it for yourself. And sometimes people want it a little bit, but they don't actually want to do the work or be open to what a coach might say to them. And a lot of that actually has to do with an individual saying to me, I really want a better career. I've spent 20 years in oil and gas. I want to transition into something else. There's no future in oil and gas, but I've worked as a director, a manager, and then a director. What can I do next? And then I say, well, probably what we're going to do is start to build what we call your dream team, right? And we'll start to build some advocates for you. That could be from your network, or maybe we'll branch outside of your network, but you're going to have to connect with them, and we can coach you on that, and we can show you what's the most effective way to reach out, but you have to reach out. And we actually had somebody who I would have loved to work with, and she said, I'm not comfortable doing that. I don't want to call somebody. I don't want to really email somebody. I just want to apply online. That's not my personality. That's not me. And that's a resistance that I will never push. You have to be respectful of things like that, right? If something feels a little bit strange, but you're excited by the growth that it presents, then you're ready. If you're not, can't force it. Call me back later, right? Think about it, mull it over. I just wanted to really quickly point out that we have a little visitor. Who is this? Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
totally love what you're saying, Amanda. I'm just asking myself, when people call you, in many cases, when people call me and they have a threshold, they actually ask me to break that threshold. So they build up as much resistance as they can to kind of overcome it for sure, if makes sense, what I'm saying. But it's like they come here and they put everything against me what they have, so I can convince them on every level and each area and aspect of their lives, so they can fully drop in and say, I really want that now, and you have convinced me, and now I'll totally go for it. So how do you deal with this?
So I think that there are lots of different types of coaches, and there's just certain coaches that will appeal to someone on a certain level. And some people want something that feels really gentle and almost therapeutic. And some people want that, right? And I actually want that. Usually, I want someone to push me so that I can create space to grow. But a lot of people who think that they want to be pushed, when you actually push them in a conversation where you're either on the phone with them or in a video call with them, and they actually keep pushing back and then say, I'm actually not, I don't want to do this. I don't really like this. I'm not really feeling comfortable. That is something where we will step back. And that's the reason that we have a team called the Career Advisory Team, because we want to spend time with a client before they truly become a client and make sure that, because maybe it's one of those things where they're saying, I want to be challenged, and they actually do. But for us, what we do is not as forceful. And I think that the kind of coaching and training I've had was because I am an entrepreneur, and I like to be pushed, and I like the growth, and I like that, Nikki knows this, it's like you have that pit of uncomfortableness, but there's excitement on top of it, because you know that you're doing something and it feels uncomfortable because you haven't done it before, but you're going to grow and stretch and learn because of it. But with career coaching, we actually need to work to match you with a coach who meets you where you are. So if you want something more aggressive, we do have coaches like that. But for the most part, what we're seeing is that the types of people that we're working with, it's a little bit more of like a slow roll of kind of realizing that what's worked to get them here won't get them there. And that's enough for somebody to say, I get that, I understand it. But if somebody says, I don't like how you're pushing me and challenging me, that's what they're in for the next 10, 20 weeks that they work with us, right? They're going to constantly be pushed and challenged. And so for us, it's more that we want the relationship to feel two-sided, and we want the coach to feel like they get a chance to pull something out of somebody and help them grow. But on the other hand, that person needs to be accepting and open to the coaching relationship. And I think that sometimes people like the idea of it the way that they like the idea of a personal trainer, and then they pay for it and then they don't go. So for us, I think that because I've been on both sides of it, I've been an entrepreneur who's been in a mastermind, or I've been coached before. I had a business coach. I had all those things. I liked that. But the clients that we work with tend to be just someone who wants to be a little bit more met where they are. And they want like a firm, but also kind of like a challenging, but a gentle touch. Because at the end of the day, it's that they don't have this unsolvable problem and their life is pretty good, but they want it to be great. And they don't need to take like an ice cold shower every morning to achieve it. They actually need to understand their value, sort of look at, these previous experiences that they've had, and sort of translate that to what they could step into next. I was to say, if an egg gets broken by outside. Yes. It actually made me think of, has anybody ever read Atomic Habits by James Clear? I don't know if anyone's, so it's just sort of just a book about habits. And they talk about how when people make habits, you usually start with an outside goal, right? So you start with the goal, I want to get really fit. I want to look great for the summer. I want to go to the beach and be chilled out and not worry about anything. And then they just think backwards, what are all the steps that I need to get to look really great in a bathing suit? And what James Clear kind of argues is that actually you need to start from the inside out. So you need to think about identity shift and how does that create a long-lasting habit. So actually, Amanda, you need to think about, if I shift my identity to someone who is in really great shape and healthy and takes care of themselves, then what are the habits that a person like that would do? And go out from there and really believe that I've become that person. And I think an example that he uses, if somebody quit smoking and they get offered a cigarette, somebody might say, oh, no, thanks, I'm trying to quit. versus someone who says, oh, no, thank you, I'm not a smoker. And that's kind of like the difference between the two mentalities. So that just kind of made me think about that, inside out versus outside in. I see Nikki like, mastermind at work.
I was reading Florence comment, if an egg gets broken from outside force, life dies. And if an egg gets broken by inside force, life begins. And I thought like this is
I love that.
a really nice image. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally like what you say, because if you can't change an identity, someone says I'm a smoker, how can I take that away from him? Like it's part of him. So you break it down to a behavior and say, so you don't actually are a smoker. I don't see you smoking. You basically break it down to a behavior and say, I see you smoking a cigarette, and then you can change it. I think he's using this to the other way around. It's smart. I got to read this book. Thank you.
Interesting. I love stuff like this. One of the problems of being married to my co-founder is that we read different books at different times. And like we realize this is not a good idea, because what I'll just do is I'll read the book, and every 4 pages I'll say, oh my God, I have to tell you this really interesting thing. And he's like, you're not giving me the chance to read the book on my own. I'm getting Amanda's Cliff Notes. But I love books like that make me think. Psycho-Cybernetics is another one where it just makes you think, and you kind of understand the science sometimes behind things. And I just find just the way your brain works just fascinating. Habits, beliefs, actions, all of it. Good stuff.
Good stuff. Love it. Who else wants to take the chance to share a story? How about you, Simon? You've been in corporate life as an entrepreneur. You've run your startup as an entrepreneur. You've been through episodes of your career.
I usually like to share and to discuss. I'm a little bit low on energy today, but now that you put me in the spotlight, I have seen or experienced NGOs, huge corporations, the United Nations, and now a small growing tech startup or youth initiative. So and I had roller coaster rides in all environments. What am I trying to say? I escaped from environments where I didn't feel 100% suited and where I couldn't 100% develop myself. And I escaped, and this was a very good decision.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. Why was it so bad? You said you escaped and it was a good decision.
Okay, maybe it's not the right way how I framed it. Escaping. It was a really interesting environment, and I had a lot of power and the possibility to develop the company and expand it. But after 5 years, I simply realized I would like to experience something new, and that's why I simply switched and looked for something else.
So you did that for 5 years. How long did you feel like you wanted to make the change before you made it? Because you said simply switched, which is phenomenal.
The process took about probably 10 months from the initial thoughts to the final decision.
That's incredible.
Is that good or bad?
That's wonderful. I talk to people sometimes and I say, they talk about their pain with their current situation. And I say, how long have you been feeling like this? Probably 3.5 years. Some people say 7 years, on and off, 9 years. So you identified something in 10 months. That's incredible. Can you actually, I don't know if we have, because Nikki, I know you're driving this, but Simon, could you talk a little bit more about what you're doing now, this youth initiative? You said it's a small tech startup.
What we are doing now with the Moonshot Pirates, that's the name of it, is we are encouraging young people to find their path personally develop, set high goals. So this would be one pillar. The second pillar is understand exponential technologies and technologies in general, because it's everywhere and so important. And the third, use all that knowledge to build something that matters. So this is our mission. And what we do is we do boot camps where we bring together a lot of young people with experts and mentors, and they, in those 3 days, find an idea, a team, and develop it and present it to the public on the last night. We do the same online in the challenge, where in the 3-week process, last time we did the pilot and we had 850 students from 30 countries that participated. So in a 3-week process, they go through all that steps and develop their ideas and find solutions for the world. And the same we also do in a mentoring program and on our we are trying to rephrase it. We have a social network that the MVP stands, and this is where it all comes together, where pirates connect with experts, where mentors find other experts, and it's all happening on there. So this is the heart of the Moonshot Pirates. And our vision is really to build a global digital community where like-minded people come together and exchange ideas and eventually change the world.
I find that so interesting because I see that on lots of places right now, everybody's doing exactly that. And so everybody is kind of building their own community. I'm building my community, you're building yours. And I can tell you right now, 10, 15 other people I know are doing the same. And so my head always spins around the question, how can we bring that all together, like under one umbrella? And that's really difficult to figure out for me. So maybe you got some ideas, because that's like 15 different individuals who want to build their company, want to put their idea out into the world. And it's really difficult to get it all together.
I think this is happening in all kinds of sectors, that things are happening parallel, from aid to NGOs to tech startups.
Silence.
Well, the question there is whether you feel like you own the community, so it's your community which you're building up, or whether you're facilitating the creation of communities, irrespective of who owns it. Now, in one case, you can get funding by saying we are building our community, and that community you can have access to, and so that has a monetization possibility. The other, which is just to help people build their own communities, it's difficult to get funding for it. On the other hand, it is very worthwhile. So I do the latter. I help people build their own communities. And I try to get funding out of just giving talks or helping people find out about themselves, a bit like Amanda. But my passion is helping people find their own futures, irrespective of where I fit in. And maybe it's that desire to segment and to try and catch a little piece of ownership, which is what forces all of these different communities to be starting up, each doing their own thing, each being catastrophically inefficient when you look at the overall picture. You know, and you can see that because I'm on Facebook and WhatsApp and LinkedIn and fucking everything, and I forget which ones do which, because at the end of the day you just say, oh, sod it. You know, and am I really worth $10? Is my value $10 for Facebook? Absolutely not. But Facebook will try and value, you know, its community on that basis. It's very, very short-term thinking.
I'm a little off topic, but I think because the term, or it's been coined several times, I think that you might grow a community and you might build a community, you might foster a community, and you might define what the value of the communities are, but you never own a community. I think that's important to know, that whenever you build something that's part and that you establish, you never own it. Every moment, every second, every interaction is a result of their free choice. And I just feel like it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's good, Nikki. Well done.
A short disclaimer is that both Marcus and Nikki are the strong drivers for the Moonshot Pirates. So what both said is also true for, partially true for the Moonshot Pirates.
Amanda, what do you think about that room? How do you like the people here?
I love it. I love it. And I love that it kind of moved a little bit into talking about communities, because obviously, Nikki, I completely agree with you that a community takes on a life of its own, and it grows and evolves based on the collective, their choices and their decisions. And I think that managing the TEDx community taught me that, because really, like, what does that mean? I managed it. I just let it go. And sometimes you facilitate, right? Whether that's like an in-person event or something online. But that's also one of my favorite things that I work on now with my clients is the client community. It's just its own thing, and people just take it in whatever direction they want it to go. And it's about learning and support, but people choose what they want to bring to it: concerns, fears, excitement, news, motivation. And it's just it's on a life of its own. It's its own thing. And we can't, you can make rules, right? That's why Facebook groups are so funny when they're like, what are the rules? Because to a certain extent, it's like, what does that mean? Right. But to let something kind of go and just give it enough that it will continue to grow, and there's kind of like fuel there. That's kind of like one of the coolest things I've had about most of my jobs, I think, was just to be in it and be in awe of it and see how it grows. And it's not because you grew it, it's because it feeds itself. Right? That happened with TEDx. It just fed itself. It was this machine in a good way. Sometimes you use machine and it's a negative. It was just like a beautiful, amazing machine.
What was the core that made it feed itself?
I mean, I could just be silly and say ideas. But no, I think that, I think to kind of overly simplify it, I think what made TEDx grow, and Nikki was there before me, was just people being able to love something so much and bring it home, bring it to their community. Everybody loves to be the person who recommends their favorite hair salon and a book, right? I was so excited to tell you guys about a book that like rocked my world a little bit. We love to refer things to each other. So to be able to take something that you love, which was TED Talks and the TED platform, and bring it home, that's what fueled it. That's why so many people go through jumping through the hoops of applying for a license and following the guidelines and making sure you're not making money off of certain things and your event isn't too big, because you love it and you want to stay connected to it and you want to continue to be able to bring it home and translate it to what it means for you. I don't know if that's like an overly simplified way of saying it, but just to me, the people that I would talk to, I remember I had a Zoom, I don't know if it was Zoom or maybe we used Blue Jeans, didn't we? Use Blue Jeans with kids in the Middle East who were talking about how they have to call it something else so that they don't get in trouble, but that all they wanted was a chance to talk about ideas freely in like a basement in a random building. And they were saying thank you to me. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I need to make sure you know that. You decided to contact TED. You decided to initiate this whole thing. It's because of you. You're amazing. You're incredible. And I think that about every TEDx organizer. It's so much work. I recognize that. It's a whole second job, a whole second career.
I think what was interesting with, and that's something that's probably very special with TED and TEDx community, that the TEDx community grew out of something that was around for 20 years or 25 years. Mm-hmm. So we went out there and we felt like, seriously, you're giving us your brand. We can do this. Oh, wow, that's amazing. I felt like I've been given something that's so valuable that I really honored and appreciated. I'm not sure if this is still the case for many TEDx events today, because many TEDx events today derive from participants at other TEDx events and not from that journey of coming from TED and craving to do and inspire your local community with something like what inspires you. But it was also a really beautiful bringing up what you guys did of that global family, of that global being together. And when I had a conversation with Marco, the other founder of the Moonshot Pirates, I feel like I said, every organization that creates a community needs a story, a calling, and a belonging. And these three pillars are fundamental to not only run a business that brings revenue into the books, but actually grow a community. And that's what that was doing.
I know, that's why it was called a tribe, or is a tribe, sorry.
And not a cult. I know that a lot of people say it isn't a cult, but it's never been a cult. I never felt it like a cult. There was never that one guy we worshipped or that one thing we worshipped.
No, but I think I did consider Laura a mentor for sure, because I saw somebody come in and build something, and it was just incredible to see the behind the scenes of that, right? And then all of the different sort of TEDx women and TEDx youth and kids and you know, all of it, to just be able to be in a front row seat watching all of these ideas, you know, just percolate and all of this kind of come to fruition. I think that inspired me a lot and made me realize that there's a lot of joy in creation and engineering of that behind the scenes. And I think that's where I kind of realized that that was something that I really loved, was to build something, because my company, my husband is the face of the company, and I love working behind the scenes, and I love building, and I love that there's somebody who steps up and is able to be the voice of our company, and that it's not me. Probably get nervous and curse or something when I wasn't supposed to, but I love that. I love the playfulness of building and creating that community, letting people interact. I think I love it, but I think that I realized my love for it by kind of seeing Laura doing that and everybody else on the team. Incredible.
Mando, thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Nikki.
I'm bringing a bracelet umbrella here. So Amanda helps us getting closer to the dreams. And our next speaker, Isabella, she's already in the room, helps us to avoid that we get closer to nightmares.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. That was really good.
Thank you.